on the mic.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The program will begin in 5 minutes. At this time, please move to your seats and help us start on schedule. Please remember to keep your face covering on at all times at TechNet Augusta, when on hotel grounds or during conference activities. For more information, consult the health and safety plan at the conference website. As a reminder, please silence your electronic devices and leave them on so you can text or email your questions for our guest speakers to the address on the screen. askmetna@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin the next session in 1 minute. Please move to your seats.
She's like, no. I'm like, that's Darth Vader. She's like, no way. Because he's doing the, singing and all these different commercials, and it's just funny.
We're ready? Okay. Oh, this hair.
You're on. I'm not on.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Lieutenant General Bob Wood, Executive Vice President, AFCEA International.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to next move into, I think, a great presentation. It'll be really focused on software. But up front, I want to offer the opportunity to make a special presentation. And I'll do that by inviting first General Shea and Sergeant First Class Knight to the stage. Stand right here. So I want to read a little bit about this Financio. It's a scholarship presented by the AFCEA Foundation. Sergeant First Class Kiev Knight is one of the first AFCEA Graduate Diversity Scholarship winners. We're very happy to make this presentation today. We wanted to do it at this session in this forum because this is a new scholarship for AFCEA. It launched this year in partnership with the Intel Corporation. Thank you very much to them. The scholarship is awarded for STEM students pursuing a master's degree or PhD during the fall 2021, spring 2022 term. In his application, Sergeant Knight states that he has led troops on countless military exercises in the field, setting up networks to prepare real-life scenarios during deployments. During deployments, he led a group of soldiers providing network access to a rear detachment unit at a base that was closing down in Afghanistan. When the mission was over, he cleared the whole forward operating base of all materiel that could be used against the friendly military in the country. While stationed in Hawaii for 4 years, he was in charge of giving weekly classes to hundreds of soldiers on insider threats and the damage they can do with social engineering. Sergeant First Class Knight is a cybersecurity major and will be attending the University of Maryland Global Campus. Please join me in congratulating Sergeant First Class Knight. And I would invite, if you'd step to this side, we'd like to get a photograph of this presentation. General Shea will make the presentation on behalf of the AFCEA Foundation. That's it.
He's going to stand in the middle with two people.
All right. All right. Good luck in that education thereafter.
Thank you. I
Good
appreciate
job.
it, sir.
Okay, it's great to award a leader and soon-to-be scholar who will be taking part in that education. It's something that the AFCEA Foundation presents a number of scholarships and grants throughout the year. Again, we thank Intel Corporation for helping us make this presentation. Okay, it's now my pleasure to formally introduce our speaker, Ms. Jennifer Swanson, Director of CECOM Software Engineering Center. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Link McCoy, CECOM Command Chief Warrant Officer, will be joining with her as he is on stage. She'll make a presentation, and you'll have an opportunity to carry on a couple questions and a conversation, and your questions are certainly welcome. This is in accordance with the theme of this particular presentation is Transforming Army Software and Cybersecurity Readiness. Very topical, very important, and really part of the big five that you heard General Fogarty talk about. Ms. Swanson serves as the Director of the U.S. Army Communication Electronics Command Software Engineering Center in Aberdeen Proving Grounds. In this position, Ms. Swanson is responsible for providing state-of-the-art software engineering products and services throughout the Army. The Software Engineering Center supports over 200 systems and programs, from command control, communication, computers, and cyber intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance to logistics. Business and enterprise platforms are also supported in the modern digital environment. As director, she oversees a global organization of over 2,500 military, civilian, and industry employees with an annual budget in excess of $600 million. Her previous assignment was Deputy Program Manager, Mission Command Program Executive Office for Command Control and Communications, Tactical, where she was responsible for overseeing the development and fielding of the Army's collaboration, situational awareness, and fires capability. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Jennifer Swanson.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I know there's a lot of people. Good morning, everyone. I know it's a fireside chat typically where, it's just us two, but we're going to act like you're here this time and talk, okay? So thank you so much for allowing, CCOM to come and grace the stage and be able to speak about one of our greatest things that we're doing, which is the Software Engineering Center. Without further ado, I'll pass it over to Ms. Swanson if you have any opening remarks, ma'am.
All right, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Chief and I both are very excited to talk to you about what really I call the transformation of the CCOM Software Engineering Center. We're going to get into some details throughout the session, but really we went from about 4 years ago, I kind of say being an organization that wrote checks to people to do software, and we were pretty antiquated in how we were doing it, to today where we really are leading innovation for software sustainment throughout the Army. So I'm very excited, and I think one of the focuses that I definitely want to touch on is how does it support the warfighter, right? So why do the guys in here in the green suits, why do you care? What are we doing for you? And we definitely want to get feedback as well on how we're doing what we're doing so we can continue to improve. I think it's important to talk about sustainment for a minute, because I think a lot of folks are like, oh, sustainment, that's really boring. That's where, systems go to die and all we do is kind of like patch things, and it's really not true. And so that's what I'm hoping that we communicate to you today is the innovation in sustainment, because software is not static. I mean, software drives everything. Everything that's out there is driven by software. And so if we don't keep up with it and keep up with the software trends, we're not serving the Army properly. So that's all I've got as an opening remark. Chief, what about you?
Well, first of all, as you talk about sustainment and people call it boring, actually that brings my first question that I'm thinking about. Software sustainment is often considered that stuffy, unsexy, boring topic. So how do you think so far since you've been there, how is CCOM Software Engineering Center changing the paradigm to operationalize sustainment differently than in the past?
Yeah, so operationalizing sustainment to us means what is the warfighter outcome? So what are the things that we are doing to directly support the warfighter and ensure that what we do every day, which is sustain software, enables Army operations out in the field. So one of the things that I definitely want to touch on as far as kind of like a face to the field is the software repository. So I'm not sure if is anybody out there familiar with the software repository? Have you used it? Any of the green suiters?
So we can't see your hands, so you can clap.
Yeah, I'm blinded by lights here. I apologize. But all right, there we go.
All right, there we
Excellent.
go.
Okay, sound works. So 4 years ago, 3 years ago, not that long ago, we were distributing software by mailing it. CDs, hard drives, whatever, different kinds of media that were showing up at units monthly in a lot of cases, globally, right? We were sending them everywhere around the world, and units were just getting inundated with a bunch of CDs that they didn't know what to do with. I mean, like hundreds, right? The other problem is it takes a long time. So depending on where you are, it could take days to weeks to months to get there, and so you're always behind. Cyber, as we know, it's a big threat. It's real. I mean, we see it every day on the news in, gas pipelines and everywhere, really, where, things get hacked, and as do we, right? And so it's very important to maintain that cyber posture. And we certainly were not setting units up for success by, kind of the Pony Express mechanism of sending software. So we now have this online repository that's out there. It went live a little bit less than a year ago. Yeah. We have conducted probably 15 pilots with units before it went live and after it went live, because we're building out the TTPs and we're updating the software repository based on unit feedback. So we right now from units have a 95% usability score, which I'm pretty happy with, because we continue to update and make it as easy as possible and take feedback and reflect that in the repository. We have 76, I think, or so systems that have software out there, and we continue to evolve that. We're working very closely with PEOC3T and POIWNS to get their software up there to the extent that we can, so that really from the field it should be a one-stop shop. You guys don't care who's building the software or delivering it, you should just have to go to one place to get it. We are averaging about 3,500 downloads a month, which is pretty good, and I'll use an example of SolarWinds. So back in December of 2020, was the big SolarWinds hack. And I mean, everybody probably read about it on the news because it affected lots of different companies and industry, and it also affected us because we use SolarWinds. So we were able to turn the patch around very quickly. We had to wait for SolarWinds to provide it. Like, they had to fix their bug, and then we had to do what we do to package a patch, test the patch with the systems, et cetera. But we were able to do all of that within 24 hours, and then we were able to put it right up on the repo. And we were watching units download it, which was really cool, because we never had that insight before. We would send CDs out and really don't have any feedback in terms of who's doing what with it. And now we can see which units downloaded the patches, and that's very important to General Fogarty and Cyber Command, right? Because they want to know, what is the cyber posture of our units out there? And so that's a way that we have operationalized sustainment to give warfighters better outcomes.
And that's really important, because software is everywhere. And as it enables the military and business operations, one of the things that it bleeds into is building new capabilities. And especially for bringing it to the speed of now, because that's definitely what's needed. Because I know just recently when we talked with General Edmondson, his focus is making sure that, look, we get things to the warfighters now. Yep. It's at the now. So and we're doing that through our field service support reps, FSRs, LARs, and so forth. So awesome, thank you so much. Next question I have is, as we begin the process of transforming software sustainment, you had to start at home with SEC. How is SEC overhauling how it does business to make it more responsive to the Army and soldiers' software and cyber needs?
All right, so I will say it starts with the people. People we have a large workforce. We have about 1,200 government people, as many, if not more, contractors that support us, and change is hard. So, people were used to doing things a certain way, plus building those skill sets takes a little bit of time, because we wanted to change how we do business. We didn't want to write software like we used to, where somebody gives us a requirement and we're like, all right, we'll deliver something in 2 years, and then you guys let us know if it works, and if not, we'll update it. That's not effective, we know that, but that is how we were developing software at the time. So reskilling, well, really two things. One, getting people excited about change and innovation. It took a little bit of time, but we did get those juices flowing in terms of, do we want to be leading the Army in software? Yes, we do. So how are we going to get there? What are the things that we can do? I stood up an innovation council very early on to allow people to bring ideas, because the people that are doing the work every day are the best to tell us, how can we do this better? What are the things that you're researching out there? So that was very helpful. We also put a pretty robust reskilling and upskilling program into place. We leverage both commercial tools that are out there that have a ton of capability in courses, and also in some cases, courses that we contract out either to University of Maryland, Baltimore County, or other places, or in some cases we hired contractors that could help with the adoption of certain technologies, like help actually go and train the trainer. This is how you implement, this is what you do. So that was key. And then we really got started. So I will say one of the big things that we did is we automated everything. We used to do everything manually. We would test manually. We had people pushing buttons. It would take weeks. We automated almost all of our tests at this point, and that has been huge. Number one, it's a huge time saver, and we're able to take some of those people that used to push buttons and reskill them to do other things. Number two, your quality goes up because computers make less errors than humans. So, we've had and you can test at night, so you can push the button, go home, and come back and look at the results in the morning. We've also automated a tremendous amount of our cyber work. As an example, STIGs, updating STIGs is very laborious. It's very important, but it's very time consuming and it's very laborious. So we've automated almost all of that process, which has been very helpful. It saves us a lot of time, and again, we can take those people and move them to other areas. And all of that really set the stage for DevSecOps. So DevSecOps was something that we kind of just heard about a few years ago. DoD, Congress have been instilling in the services that, hey, this is really the way to do software. So what is DevSecOps? So it combines agile development, which is really the users are involved. So it's not give me a requirement and I'll come back in 2 years. It's help me along the way and let me give you an increment of something, and then you're there with me and you can tell me, does this meet the requirement or not? So it combines that with automation, which we did, and it allows you to build these automated pipelines. And you're able to really drop code in, it goes through the automated pipeline, and it comes out much faster. We've been able to deliver 50% more capability in about half the time. Now, I will say we are helping, this has brought to light some Army processes that need to be DevSecOps in order to actually deliver capability to the field, right? And so it's given us the opportunity to influence some of those process changes, which we're working with the Army, so that we can bring all of those things to the same level as the development, so that we can actually deliver that capability to soldiers, because there's some things that we have to go through that take a little bit of time, but we're working that. So, I mean, that's really, like I said, we went from, hey, everything's manual, to now we're really able to do things at a very fast pace.
And what is doing things at a very fast pace, I think you hit on a key thing about automating the services, because it allows the soldiers to be able to do a lot more things and not need to lean on CCOM. Because I know me as a green suit, I'm like, look, I just want to do this myself. Right. I just want to give me the opportunity, the capabilities to do it myself as we move forward. One of the other things that the automation software allows to do, I mean, it's helped with the platforms like joint tactical terminals, D6A, and it's reduced a lot of man hours as well. One of the things that I also want to, Kevin, ask on that is the soldiers' feedback, or the warfighters' feedback. How critical is that for SCC? Absolutely critical.
So that's why everything that we do, we pilot. It's super important to get the warfighter perspective and feedback, because we can sit in a lab and say this seems like a good idea, but we really have to try it out. And so, like I said, with the repo, that is what we did. We did a lot of pilots. We're about to pilot something new with regard to e-patching, which leverages a capability that is out there but really often not used. Microsoft SCCM that is in the server stacks that are out in the field. And it's essentially going to help us to really automate that patching. Not to the point where we're going to push stuff on computers out there that warfighters aren't saying, yes, do it. But it's going to take a lot of the manual effort that we have to do today, or that you have to do today, out of the cycle. And that's being piloted in the next couple of weeks. And it's critical. I mean, we can't do it without. And that's why, you know, one of the things I'm hoping to get today is feedback from soldiers. What can we do better? What's working and what's not working. I want to fix whatever's not.
I think that would be the stomp the foot, like, look, we need feedback. Feedback is how we get better.
Yep.
So
And Chief, I'm sorry, not to cut you off. One thing I forgot to say about automation is one of the things that's soldier facing that we've spent a lot of time on is automating installation of software. So the DSIGs servers are a good example. It used to take weeks, and now it takes hours, I'm told. Does it? You guys tell me. So those are the things. There's a lot of installation issues that we face with some of the legacy software, but we're doing everything we can to make it as simple as possible.
Oh, definitely. I think if I recall right, the Headquarters DA recently released an exhort requiring units to maintain software readiness. What kind of culture change? Because we understand culture change is sometimes the most challenging thing to change. But culture change or bring in this culture change. So what kind of culture change among soldiers and commanders will be required to do that?
Yeah, so what the exhort, so I will say we were kind of on the ground floor of that exhort. In terms of, we recognized a few years ago that readiness, while a top priority always for the Army, was 100% hardware focused.
Right.
Right. It's, you know, when you look at USR, it's really, it's all hardware. Do you have all the things that you need? Hardware. But what about your software? If your software doesn't work, does your system work? It doesn't. If your software is not updated, are you protected from, you know, the bad guys hacking in? You're not. So we worked with Headquarters DAG3 and developed the criteria for what are the things that we would want to enable software readiness. What does that mean? So we really came up with two things. One, units have to be on an approved software baseline. And two, units have to update to the latest cyber release within 30 days of when we post it on that repo. The culture change that is needed is the muscle memory to do that, right? Because it's been a long time of that not being emphasized. And I think it's because software is not tangible. Like, it doesn't break. You don't see it break, but it is broken if it doesn't work, or it's not doing what you need it to do, or it's not cyber protected and you don't even know it because you don't know it. And so I think the culture change is really instilling that behavior and that muscle memory to keep that software updated. So one of the things that the XORD requires is implementation of these checks, these software checks, into the 1020 PMCS hardware checks that everybody does. And I think that's how we build that muscle memory.
Right.
So it's, you know, hey, this is what you have to do. Make sure that you're on the latest version. Make sure that you've downloaded, you know, your latest cyber patch. And that's how we're going to build that muscle memory and change that culture.
So awesome, thank you. I think you hit that one definitely on the nail, because people forget the old school of PMCS, preventive checks and maintenance services.
Yeah.
Making sure that my stuff is within the 30 days. Making sure, because if software is not working, my systems are not working, and I'm leaving myself to be vulnerable. So as a warfighter, though I have a lot of other things that I'm thinking about, I also have to make sure that I implement that in my muscle memory.
Exactly. And the XORD that was released this year drove a couple of pilots to pilot this concept. And the feedback was very good. Yes, it works. Yes, we can do this. And so now the final XORD is coming out in FY22 from G3, and ultimately it's going to require units to report as non-mission capable if they don't meet the criteria. And I mean, we know that's a big deal. So, you know, we want to make sure that we get the word out and help units along.
I think the 2 units that we highlighted in the pilot, I think it was a 3.1 CAV and then
2.2, I think.
2.2 ID,
Yep.
yes, ma'am. Okay. How do you see the trend of hardware-software integration impacting CCOM, how CCOM meets the statement mission? That's the question. I mean, because, you know, like earlier you mentioned, everyone always thinks about hardware and then software. So how do we attack that?
Well, software runs on hardware. We can't do it without. So that's something we're very conscious of. So when we make software changes or cyber updates, we make sure that everything is tested in our lab on the hardware that is in the field before we release it, to prevent you from finding problems. And you know, sometimes I will say that limits what we can do with software because the hardware is a limiting factor, and you know, it's hard to field new hardware to the Army overnight. So we have to be creative in software sustainment to not outpace the hardware that is in the field while still making sure that we provide as much capability as needed.
And I think with that, you know, our working relationships with some of our MSCs, such as SEC, ILLC, TYAD, that definitely allows us to get at that a whole lot more, because we make sure that we're all talking across the same platform and making sure that we're messaging the right thing out there. One of the ways SEC is leading cybersecurity through its software assurance process. Can you explain, just touch on what is the process, what the process is and how it works, and what does it enable?
Yeah, so software assurance is, it's a set of tools, a bunch of different tools that you can use to scan software to identify vulnerabilities. And that's a big deal. I don't know how many of you were involved in NIEs, but I certainly was when I was the chief engineer for POC3T for a long time. And I remember, you know, the red team would come in and they'd get in the network. It was not hard. And they would find things that to me were crazy, like, this system hard-coded the password and it's not changeable. And so once you have the password, I mean, everybody has the password. So, I mean, that's insane. We all know that's not very good cybersecurity practice, but it absolutely was common practice, and NIE wasn't even that long ago. So those are some of the things that these tools would flag. And there's a lot, that's a very egregious example. There's a lot of other things that are, you know, less crazy, if you will, but still will cause problems that these tools help us find. We also have tools now that scan COTS products, which for us are a big deal because COTS products are embedded in almost every system that's out there in the C5ISR realm. And so we actually, and I'm not going to name names, but we've worked with a lot of high-profile vendors and found a lot of issues that they then turned around and fixed and came back for more scans, and we were able to verify that their security posture was a lot higher than it had been before. And we can now actually, this is very recent, we can do dynamic analysis, which means basically while the software is running, find what are the issues. And that really gets after that red team. You know, when the software is running, there's different things that happen, and how do, you know, the red teams get in. And then of course that translates to how do the bad guys get in when the software is running in the field. And so all of those things are helping us to really tighten the security posture of software. We have a great team of folks that run these tools, and they implemented machine learning a couple of years ago to really enhance the process and enhance what the tools can do. And you know, what happens is these tools spit out like hundreds of pages of stuff which nobody wants to go through. So the machine learning capability has really automated that for us and allowed us to prioritize. Like, oh, we found 5,000 issues, but let's focus on these, you know, 150 first. And so that's a service. We do that for our own software, but we also provide that to customers that, you know, want to understand the security posture of their software. And I will say we lead the Army CIO Software Assurance IPT, and recently we were able to get guidance published that now everybody in the Army that is developing software needs to, and they don't have to come to us, there's other providers, but they need to do these software assurance checks.
Yeah, definitely.
And fix issues as they go, especially, as they go before it transitions to sustainment, because we want to be able to use our money not to fix a bunch of other problems, but to be able to add capability. So I think we're making a lot of progress in that area,
I agree.
Chief.
Definitely. So I think we've been sitting here like just informing everyone, but I think, what do you think about giving them an opportunity to kind of ask some questions, see what's on their mind?
All in.
Were there any questions?
Yes, sir. So we do have a few questions.
Yes, thanks.
Are there future plans for putting the software repository on the various networks supported? Currently, personnel have to get approval to burn updates to disks so they can move the updates to the various networks, and that can be time-consuming.
So today it's on Nipper and Sipper. If we're talking about, can I get a little clarification on, those are enclaves, not networks per se, I guess.
Right.
The TSSCI is a little bit challenging right now. What I will say is we are now working Repo 2.0, where we are leveraging C-Army, which is the Army's cloud. It's the CIO's cloud offering, and so we are piloting that very soon. And I think by leveraging C-Army and the Army cloud, we're going to be able to get after a lot more users and networks. I don't know if that answered the question.
I think it did.
Okay.
There's a question about solar winds in that if they're not following the process to update the patches as you distribute them, is there a process for you to automatically push to secure the network?
No. So, we have to be careful with tactical networks because we don't know what users are doing. Has anybody been at their desk and had a patch pushed and all of a sudden your computer reboots? I definitely have. I'm sure everybody has. We can't do that. So what we are doing is what I was talking about before, leveraging capabilities that are already out there to try to make this more automated. That's what we are doing. So SCCM, which is a capability that's out in the Mission Command servers, we're piloting very soon a capability to leverage that to be able to essentially push it almost all the way, but the user still has to say, yes, I can take it right now, because the last thing we want to do is disable like a fires mission or something. We just don't have that kind of insight.
Exactly, and especially if you're in the middle of a mission or something, that way you can at least hold it off, but then you have to, again, it goes back to that muscle memory saying, hey, I know it's my responsibility to make sure that we get this patch on here so we can move forward. So.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Do you track software that's not in the traditional sustainment model? The examples you give are defensive cyber ops and offensive cyber ops.
Yeah, so we actually support defensive cyber ops. We have folks that work that. That's a POEIS program, and we have folks that work that. We do track those. I'm actually glad that question came up, because it's one of the things that as we get the new SEC story out, that I really want to emphasize. So I think there's a perception out there that we can't keep up, right? That DCO, OCO, the threat changes too fast, and we in sustainment are just unable to keep up with that pace. I don't think that's true anymore. In fact, I know it's not true anymore. So that's something that, while we are involved, we would like to do more, and I think we can do it, frankly, more cost effectively and faster and better than some. And I think it's something that, because of this transformation that we've undergone, that we can now enable better.
So with the cloud initiatives in the tactical space, can you share more about the development of cloud-ready apps?
So cloud obviously is the way to go, but not for everything. So yeah, there's a lot of things, certainly business systems, right? So we support business systems. Business systems are all in the cloud, and that makes a lot of sense. We don't have to maintain all of that hardware. Users can get to it from wherever, and that's certainly the right thing to do there. In the tactical environment, I think it's a little bit. There's a lot of areas where we are developing cloud-enabled apps, and we've actually reskilled and upskilled portions of our workforce to do that. But network is always an issue when you're in a tactical environment, and so we have to make sure that whatever we do, that we're not going to hamper the ability of the warfighter. Some stuff still has to be local. I mean, that's really the bottom line. So, we can have things in the cloud, but there's still going to have to be some local instance of that and the data, because we can't have them reaching back to some cloud at wherever when they're in the Kabul airport or.
Yeah, and I think the local part is because sometimes you'll have that disconnected portion so where they can actually be able to connect to it.
Yep.
So you mentioned feedback earlier. Has CCOM implemented any processes or tools to measure software utilization once it's fielded?
Software utilization, again, I'm going to blame the network, which I was a big part of for a long time at PEOC3T. It's hard to measure software utilization from, the enterprise in tactical, because we can't really monitor that kind of use, but then we're just taking bandwidth that warfighters need to do other things to monitor usage.
Right.
However, what we do is we get feedback on the repo. We actually very recently in the last couple of weeks, put out a memo and delivered a script to DSIGs users to get feedback from them on utilization of the COTS products that are on that platform, because they're very, very expensive. They're costing us a tremendous amount of money, and we really don't know what's used and what's not used. And so we're trying to get that feedback from the script that we delivered to them in terms of getting that feedback, so we can maybe make some adjustments if we need to better utilize the sustainment money that we have.
And the feedback portion of it is really important, because, without the feedback, without sitting here saying, hey, I wish it was doing this, or this is the challenge that I'm having, we can't better products. We can't give not only give the warfighters what they need, but we can't say, hey, this is what we need to fine tune, because a lot of our engineers and so forth, they're not on the field. So
right.
so it's really, really key and really important.
Absolutely.
So how do you automate STIGs when there are manual checks and scripted checks? Do you keep a repo of the manual checks?
Yeah, so there is some manual component still, but there are tools out there that we leveraged and then kind of, I would say, enhanced to be able to automate a lot of the work that is required. So you do still have to manually check, but when you're actually doing the manual configuration and implementation, that is the super time-consuming part that we've been able to automate.
What's the scanning software used for software assurance?
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you guys. I don't know the details. There's a lot. I know Fortify is one that is a common tool that a lot of people use, that we also use.
Right.
But we use we have probably 25 different commercial and government developed tools that as a combination allow us to do all of the things. We don't use all 25 necessarily on this product, but between all 25 is what really allows us to get to, scan whatever's out there.
Right.
So what's the validation process when they're followed outside of the STIG checks to produce the secure lifecycle for software?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat that? Validation for
What's
what?
the validation process that's being followed for outside of STIG checks?
For testing software?
It discusses the software lifecycle.
Okay. Yeah, so we have test procedures that run the software through its cycles. So, and that's all automated now. So we're able to do that very quickly. So anytime we make a change, whether it's fixing problems that are reported, whether it's adding capability because that's a new requirement, Whether it's updating, for example, sometimes messaging standards change. They actually often change, and so we have to update all the software to remain interoperable. IAVAs that we, all the cyber stuff that we do monthly, or the STIGs, we have the same set of procedures that we run the software through to make sure that everything works. So we're always testing, we're always doing regression testing. I'm not going to say it's perfect, it's not, because we all know that software can take many, many different paths, and we do miss stuff sometimes, but less and less now that we have computers doing most of it. Because we are able to, when we know we missed something, we're able to go back and add that test case in, and we don't miss that again. So that's how we do it.
And this is going to be the last question. Are you aware of DISA's Enterprise Patch Management System program currently in development, the goal to be an all-encompassing patch repository for all DoD entities? And are there plans for CCOM and the U.S. Army as a whole to utilize that for future patch management support?
So I'm not. But I'm not, I would need a little bit more detail, but certainly if DoD puts something out there that everybody can get to, where we're able to host all of our software updates, then that's something we would certainly look into, of course.
So I think you said that was the last one. So
Yeah.
So this was actually pretty great. I think along with allowing everybody, giving everyone information on how to, if they want to reach out to SEC or yourself, what have you, would you mind sharing that? And as well, do you have any closing remarks, ma'am?
Thanks, Chief. So yeah, absolutely reach out to me, and I will connect you with the right people. I'm probably not the right person, but I know who are. And as far as closing remarks, I think we've talked through a lot of what we wanted to make sure that we were able to communicate with you today. I think that the biggest thing is just remembering that even though you don't see software, you can't touch software, you can't feel software, it is 100% giving the capability that you need. And you can't see when you're not protected. You can't see when something's not working until it's not, right? So until you try to, use a system to send a medevac message and it doesn't go, and then you're like, oh man, that's a problem. So that's why it's really important to develop that muscle memory, keep the software updated, because a lot of times I think in the past, users didn't really update because they thought everything was okay and they didn't want to mess with the state of things. But there really are a lot of things that we are updating in these capabilities that we put out that are important, that we don't want you to figure out it was important after the fact. And same thing with cyber protection. I mean, you just don't know. Like, people could be in my phone right now. I mean, we can't see that until the data's gone, or until the bad guys are in. So it's really critical. And the other thing is we want feedback. So in particular for the warfighters, we really want your feedback in terms of how are we doing, what are the things that we could do better. Are they working the way we think they're working? And if not, tell us so that we can fix them.
Yeah, ma'am, this was a great opportunity to sit here with you and have this nice fireside chat. And again, if I get any emails, being the Command Chief Warrant Officer of CCOM, I'll definitely make sure I connect with our team as SEC as well as
Thanks,
ILLC.
Chief.
So thank you so much for taking this time, and I appreciate everyone being a part of it.
And thanks to you, Chief, for being a great moderator and partner.
Yes, ma'am, thanks.
Let's give him a hand. Well, we've got two real professionals up here committed to, I almost call you the silent software warriors. You're getting it done all the time. We know how persistent, how complex, but how vital software is. And we've wanted to have this conversation for a while in this setting. It's just so important. Yes, data, yes, network, but also software
Yes,
running
sir.
on that network. We really do appreciate it. And I would offer that kind of advice and counsel has come from General Edmondson, who couldn't make it because he's providing mission support.
Yep.
Yes.
And we do appreciate him allowing two very professional specialists in the area of software to join us and have this conversation. Once again, let's give them a hand, please. All right, we've got some things coming up. Let me just post you before we turn you loose, because I know lunch starts at 11:30, runs to 1:30, so there's going to be plenty of time to not only see the panel that's upcoming, but also have lunch. That next panel is at 11:45 here in this room. General Yee will be bringing DISA's perspective. The topic, it's always General Yee has the greatest topics. Thunderdome, Doden's security way ahead in light of zero trust. So please welcome back at 11:45 to the Thunderdome presentation. It is always a great opportunity to hear DISA's approach, the work they're doing, and really the outcomes they're after. As I mentioned, lunch is going to be served down in the Reynolds lobby area as we did yesterday. You can not only go to the panel, but you will not miss lunch, I guarantee it. If you look to the screens on either side of the stage here, you'll see what we have planned for the afternoon. Please be sure to join us as well here at 4 o'clock for the Women in Cyber Leadership panel. You see that highlighted. It's not highlighted, but I want to make sure you see it. There are 4 to 5. It's a Women in Cyber Leadership panel. It's on artificial intelligence and other cyber challenges. It's sponsored by Sienna and Walker and Associates. They will no doubt bring their very professional and learned perspective to a variety of aspects of that topic, and it's always a can't-miss opportunity to join in the conversation. There's a reception afterwards, too, if you have other questions that you may wish to ask, and that is, again, supported by Sienna and Walker and Associates for sponsoring this particular panel. There are a variety of breakout sessions. There's a lot of things going on the floor, and PEO and PM activities going on over at the Georgia Cyber Center. Okay, once again, let's thank our panelists. We will snuff out the fire at the fireside chat and allow you to take off. Thank you very much. We'll see you at 11:45, ladies and gentlemen.